labaversary. It's been 1 year as a postdoc in Danica Fujimori's lab at the University of California, San Francisco, UCSF. For those who aren't familiar with the term, postdoc stands for postdoctoral researcher or postdoctoral scholar, postdoctoral associate, postdoctoral fellow. There's all these different names for it. And some of it depends on like where your funding comes from. Some of it just depends on what institution you're at. All of it's basically you've just gotten your PhD, or maybe not just by the time you're later on in your postdoc, but you've gotten your PhD and now you are in a different lab and you are studying something different. It could be totally different, it could be not very different, but you're doing something where you're picking up new skills, you're entering a new research area, you're doing something like this. And so although you spent like 5 years or so in grad school, you've only done like a tiny little slice of the scientific world. And so basically you've been focusing on learning how to be a scientist in grad school. That's really what it's all about. It's not so much about the problem you're researching, it's about learning to be a scientist. When you enter your postdoc, now you can kind of start to more focus on what you want to do like long term. Somewhat confusingly, postdoc can refer to both the person as well as the position. And so often people will be doing a postdoc as kind of like an intermediate step before they start their own lab. And having this postdoc not only allows you to pick up new skills, but it also allows you to kind of pump up your CV and your resume, get more papers, get all of this sort of thing that are going to help you be competitive when you go to apply for a position to have your own lab. But being a postdoc is not like required for like, well, anything. There's various things like fellowships that some people do like straight out of their PhD, but typically people are going to want to see that you've done a postdoc and then see what you've done during your postdoc, how you've kind of shown your independence. So in your postdoctoral position, you have like more independence than you had as a grad student. But you're still mentored and you're still in somebody else's lab and they're running the show. You're kind of you have more of your own research project. You might even have multiple projects, whereas in grad school, you might have had like one project. Now you might have more responsibility. You have more projects that you're working on. But all of this is under the big umbrella of what the lab research is. But you get to kind of like take more responsibility for it, but you also have more responsibilities. And so some of these responsibilities are things I love, like getting to mentor other students, maybe rotation students, fellow grad students in the lab, but really everybody's helping one another. And so when you go from being your PhD, you're kind of like, I've got this all. And then you go into a new lab and you're like, I don't even know where the pipettes are. And so the grad students in the lab, the other postdocs, the other people in the lab, everybody's really, really helpful in helping you find where's what and how to do different protocols. And then later you're able to kind of pay it forward and teach other people. So a postdoc is this really kind of strange position where you're in between. You're not a student anymore. You're not running a lab. You're getting more experience. You're building more skill sets. You're researching a new area, doing stuff that was going to help you with whatever you decide that you want to do in your future career. So postdocs are really, really, really common for people who are going into academia. So you want to go and like be a professor or something like this. Almost everybody who does that goes to a postdoc. For some industry positions, people like just go straight out of grad school into industry positions. There's some people that do a postdoc and then go into industry. There's some people that do a postdoc in industry. There's all these weird like variations on things, and postdocs themselves have long variations of like the positions. So it could be a really short period, it can be a much longer period. Some of it depends on what your final goals are. Some people do like maybe a shorter postdoc as they're just looking for, say, an industry job or something like this, whereas other people might be doing a really long postdoc because they're trying to get a position at like a really competitive place to work at. And so people do postdocs for different reasons. Some people do multiple postdocs, so they might go to a couple different labs. Maybe they want to pick up skills in a couple different areas. But all of this is to say that postdoc is basically just someone who has completed their doctorate. So they've gotten their PhD, and now they're branching out to a slightly different area or a very different area, or just trying to get a new skill, something like this. And so yeah, so that's what a postdoc is. And so I've been doing been a postdoc for a year, and I've learned a lot, and it's been a really great opportunity to develop as a scientist. And I'm so grateful to have been able to find a good lab. That's the most important thing, basically, about being training to be a scientist is finding the right lab. So both in grad school and in your postdoc, if you do one, you want to make sure that you're in a very supportive environment, and I totally am. And I'd like to thank Danica as well as all the members of the Fujimori lab from the bottom of my heart for giving me the opportunity to train here and making it such a fantastic year. I've learned a lot of new skills, really matured as a scientist in a lot of ways, and I am so, so grateful. I don't take for granted the opportunities that I've been provided, and some ways it feels like how could it have been a year already, and in other ways it feels like it's only been a year because they've made it feel so much like home. And so I'm super duper grateful to the lab, and yeah, and I hope that it's been a great year for them as well.